As the Quakers say, Quaker Christians say, there is something of God in everyone. When we represent that something in us that is God, it doesn't see enemies. And it can't raise the dead, you know? We don't have the power to bring our 16-year-old daughter back to life. That's a loss that will be there for the rest of that father's life. But he has the choice to not betray his higher self. Which is more powerful, love or hate? It can be kind of confusing, right? It can be kind of hard to tell sometimes which is more powerful, especially since hate feels very armored up, very strong and intense. It feels kind of invulnerable. It feels heavily defended. Whereas love forces us to open our heart. Even if we don't do anything differently outside, even if it doesn't change our outer behavior, love forces us to surrender to ourselves, to surrender to our own feelings and what's really happening inside of us. So which one is more powerful, love or hate? It can be hard to tell. I want to share a situation that you can go on YouTube, search for it and look, and you can watch example after example of this. It's a courtroom video when someone's been murdered and there's a chance for the victim's family to make a victim impact statement to the murderer. And I've seen this so many times. You'll get family members who are devastated. They're absolutely overcome with hatred for the murderer. They're trying their hardest to make the murderer suffer by saying the very worst things that they can think to say. They say stuff like, "You're gonna go to hell, I hope you suffer for eternity," blah, 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 right? Their faces are like twisted up into ghoulish masks of hatred. And they are just spitting venom at the murderer who's sitting there having to listen to it. And typically when you see family members doing this, you're going to get one of two reactions from the murderer. One is just stone cold, unemotional expression on their face. Or in some cases, you even have them smirking at the family members, the people who they have devastated their lives, changed their lives forever by taking away a loved one. Sometimes they actually laugh. But occasionally you see something else happen. I just saw this on YouTube this morning. My son sent me a video, and it was the victim impact statements for the serial killer named Gary Ridgway. And you had these people coming up just they're trying to verbally destroy the man. And the man is just looking at them with no expression. They're giving it their very best shot to try to hurt this guy. And it's doing nothing. Nothing apparent on the surface anyway. But then there was a father of a 16-year-old girl who stood up. And he said, "There's lots of people here that hate you. I'm not one of them." And when he said that, I thought I could see like a little tremble in the lip of this murderer, Gary Ridgway. And then the father goes on to say, "You've made it very difficult for me to do what I believe in, which is to forgive. But I forgive you, sir." And he said it with tremendous sadness tremendous honesty, tremendous heartbreak, but there was love. And of course, do you know what happened? After all those other family members had tried their best to hurt this man and failed, when that father said, "I forgive you," that's when the killer's face crumbled and he began to weep. Which is stronger, love or hate? That wasn't an isolated incident, guys. You can see that happen over and over and over in these victim impact statements on YouTube. Which is stronger? Our ego self, which sees enemies, which rightfully blames people for bad behavior, but then gets stuck in that me versus them modality. That's the ego, me versus them. I am separate from other people and from all things, and this is a dangerous world. I've got to look out for myself. I've got to protect myself and protect the ones I love. I've got to fight other people to get safety and resources. That's the ego. But that's not the only thing that's inside of us. That father, that heartbroken father, stood up and he represented his true self to that killer. His true nature, as we would call it in India, in Buddhism and Hinduism. Our higher self. What we really are underneath the ego. You might call it the soul. The divine spark that is at the core of us. The divine spark that God created when he created, or she or it created us. As the Quakers say, Quaker Christians say, there is something of God in everyone. When we represent that something in us that is God, it doesn't see enemies. And it can't raise the dead, you know? We don't have the power to bring our 16-year-old daughter back to life. That's a loss that will be there for the rest of that father's life. But he has the choice to not betray his higher self. He doesn't have the choice to not be heartbroken. He's going to be heartbroken whether he hates the killer or whether he forgives the killer. That choice was taken away from him. He doesn't have it. But the choice he does have is to not betray his own highest nature. You know, some people might say that that's the only choice we really have in this life. Everything else that's happening is kind of the net result of trillions of inputs that is beyond our control. But our choice to surrender to what we really are, even when it hurts, even when something unjust has happened to us, that is this sacred choice that we have, to not betray ourselves, to stay true to what we really are beneath the ego. Why would we do that? Because it's the only way out of suffering. It's not a way out of pain, but it's a way out of suffering. It's a way to break the cycle of suffering that we pass back and forth between other egos. Our ego plays this horrible, demented game of ping pong where someone hurts us and we hurt them back, and then they hurt us and then we hurt them back, and other people get hurt and they hurt us and we hurt them back, and then they hurt other people and those people hurt them back. And it just spreads, it ripples into the collective consciousness of humanity. We have a choice not to do that by staying true to ourselves. And it'll still be a terrible loss to lose a loved one, but at least we don't lose our own heart in the process.